about spiritual reason. And this is an idea that is being really introduced more significantly in this chapter for the first time. So it's not altogether familiar to even if you've read the previous 20 chapters. But by this session, you'll have the introduction to spiritual reason. And like all things in A Course in Miracles, the real goal is for you to use it yourself, for you to apply it into your own life. So this is called the function of reason, of spiritual reason. Welcome to Miracles on High Plains. My name is Jonica, and our reader for this session is Atisha.
Perception selects and makes the world you see. It literally picks it out as the mind directs. The laws of size and shape and brightness would hold, perhaps, if other things were equal. They are not equal. For what you look for, you are far more likely to discover than what you would prefer to overlook. The still, small voice for God is not drowned out by all the ego's raucous screams and senseless ravings to those who want to hear it. Perception is a choice and not a fact, but on this choice depends far more than you may realize as yet. For on the voice you choose to hear and on the sights you choose to see depends entirely your whole belief in what you are. Perception is a witness but to this, and never to reality. Yet it can show you the conditions in which awareness of reality is possible, or those where it could never be.
Mhm. So the laws of perception never end in learning to understand them. Many of these we have seen before, that perception is really an interpretation. It selects what it chooses to believe on, and then based on what it selects, it then interprets the world in terms of its choice. So this is saying you select whether or not you're going to be guided by the ego or the Holy Spirit, and then you interpret your experience through the lens of the ego or the Holy Spirit. So, one of the lines that I think would serve you well to memorize is that perception is a choice and not a fact. That's so easy to remember. Perception is a choice. Remember, the first choice is made inwardly, whether or not you choose to seek out Holy Spirit's guidance or forget to, that's a choice as well. And we know that the ego will always speak first. So, impulsively or instinctually, your very first initial response to a situation will be based on your memory of the past. It'll be egoic. It'll be already determined by your past. Only then, if you're willing to pause and say, "What spirit, what would you have me say? What would you have me do?" Only in that pause and questing for spirit guidance can you hear the voice of the Holy Spirit. So it depends on what you want to hear. But this choice depends far more than you realize as yet. It's, in fact, an entire belief system. It comes about as a result of this choice. And as you know, we've emphasized the foundation for that belief system is a belief in what you are. What is your nature? Your true nature, not just your temporal nature in flesh and blood as a human, but what is your complete nature throughout all of eternity? It's a belief in what you are. And then, depending on how you perceive yourself, you then look for evidence of this in the world. It's a witness, but to your belief in yourself, not to reality, despite the way we might think that we're viewing reality. We're really viewing a witness to the way we view ourselves. So that's going to play a role in our understanding of reason, because we're going to combine a number of things together here, including perception and faith and reason are all going to be combined together. Any thoughts or comments on that? Okay, so these are new ideas. We want to take our time and try to understand the foundations here as we go on.
Reality needs no cooperation from you to be itself, but your awareness of it needs your help because it is your choice. Listen to what the ego says and see what it directs you see. And it is sure that you will see yourself as tiny, vulnerable, and afraid. You will experience depression, a sense of worthlessness, and feelings of impermanence and unreality. You will believe that you are helpless prey to forces far beyond your own control and far more powerful than you. And you will think the world you made directs your destiny. For this will be your faith. But never believe because it is your faith it makes reality.
So we, of course, teaches pay attention to how you feel. If you feel yourself as tiny, vulnerable, and afraid, perhaps depressed, or a sense of worthlessness, feelings of unreality, sense of helplessness, being preyed upon by a world beyond your control, more powerful than you. If you feel that, know that it's certain that the ego will prompt you to feel that way. It's because that's what the ego does. It cannot be your source of peace. So if you have those feelings, just say, oh, I must be captured by those feelings have arisen based on ego promptings. And know that what you do next is entirely up to your choice. You can choose again. You need not continue along the path that those ego promptings gave you. Although we know that you will think that the world directs your destiny, that you are being controlled by outside forces more powerful than you. You will think that you are a victim of the world I see. And why? Because the power of your mind applied to those feelings and thoughts means that you've given it your faith. You've decided that's what you want to entertain and give your attention to. But never believe just because you gave your attention to it, it's real. And this is perhaps one of the biggest. I was talking not long ago with a friend of mine's been in the course for far more than 10 years. And she was upset about conditions of the world and was telling me that she still has difficulty in believing that the world out there at large And the reporting that she hears about it is not the truth, is not the reality. So it's a big undoing. You will think the world you made is part of your destiny because you gave it your faith. And so the power of your faith, one of the chief learnings here is that your faith has power and you decide where to direct it. You are not a victim of the world you see. You choose what the where to place the power of your faith. Unconsciousness is by default a choice of not making a real choice at all. Starting to awaken to the realization and recognition of spirit means that you shift into a conscious choice of where to direct your faith.
There is another vision and another voice in which your freedom lies, awaiting but your choice. And if you place your faith in them, you will perceive another self in you. This other self sees miracles as natural. They are as simple and as natural to it as breathing to the body. They are the obvious response to calls for help, the only one it makes. Miracles seem unnatural to the ego because it does not understand how separate minds can influence each other, nor could they do so. But minds cannot be separate. This other self is perfectly aware of this, and thus it recognizes that miracles do not affect another's mind, only its own. They always change your mind. There is no other.
So those final sentences we're going to come back to because they caused me to stumble for a moment when I read them ahead of time. The emphasis in this paragraph, I think it says at least 3 times, is about your other self, your higher self, your self that you share with the Holy Spirit and with all your brothers in creation, sometimes referred to as the superconscious self or the soul. We don't get hung up on the terminology here. It's the recognition that this is the self that is at one with God. And this is where this course is about, training your mind to attune in to that other self. You will perceive another self in you. And that, remember, in the Principles of Miracles, the first page of the textbook, one of the principles is miracles are natural. When they don't happen, something has gone wrong, meaning we've become confused and forgotten our higher self. This other self sees miracles as natural, not to the ego, but to the higher self. So all right, this final segment here is about the one mind. Remember, there's one mind in all of creation, and we are a part of that one mind. This is your other self, shares in that one mind. Minds cannot be separate, and your other self is perfectly aware of this. And thus it recognizes, here's the interpretation that I struggled with. It recognizes that miracles do not affect another mind. It affects only its own because there's only one mind. There aren't many minds. It doesn't affect another mind as if there were a separate, they have a mind and 7 billion minds in the world. There's only one mind. They always change the one mind There is no other mind. And this is a profoundly different teaching than the idea where we were confused and thought our brain was our mind. We acknowledge that in the humanity, whatever it is, 7.5 billion human beings, that there's 7.5 billion brains, but there's only one mind. And that distinction is level clarity. Brains are not minds, minds are not brains. Although while you're here, you need a brain for it to function.
You do not realize the whole extent to which the idea of separation has interfered with reason. Reason lies in the other self you have cut off from your awareness. And nothing you have allowed to stay in your awareness is capable of reason. How can the segment of the mind devoid of reason understand what reason is, or grasp the information it would give? All sorts of questions may arise in it, but if the basic question stems from reason, it will not ask it. Like all that stems from reason, the basic question is obvious, simple, and remains unasked. But think not, reason could not answer it.
So we're going to get now in more and more into exploring this concept of spiritual reason. And we need to make a distinction right away. We are not, when it refers to reason here, we are not addressing scientific reason. There is a domain of mathematics and science and material laws of biology and chemistry and physics that are concerned with scientific reason. And that's fine. Set that aside for a moment so that we can talk about the contents of the Holy Spirit's mind, which is spiritual reason. And so, spiritual reason lies in your higher self. Your lower self is devoid of spiritual reason. Your lower self, meaning your brain, your ego consciousness, is devoid of reason and doesn't even understand what reason is. Yet, all sorts of questions may arise in your lower self, but the most basic of all questions, your ego mind will not ask. If, in other words, the ego mind doesn't want to get to the truth, but it's willing to ask thousands and thousands of questions just to keep you occupied. And none of those questions or responses are particularly useful to it. It just wants to engage in spinning your wheels and taking up your time. But it won't. But when it comes to uncovering the most fundamental of issues, such as what am I, the ego will not ask it. And it's not that spiritual reason would certainly be capable of answering the question, what am I? But the ego is not concerned with such profound questions that might expose that you are not the ego, you are something apart from the and beyond the concept of an ego.
God's plan for your salvation could not have been established without your will and your consent. It must have been accepted by the Son of God, for what God wills for him, he must receive. For God wills not apart from him, nor does the will of God wait upon time to be accomplished. Therefore, what joined the will of God must be in you now, being eternal. You must have set aside a place in which the Holy Spirit can abide and where he is. He must have been there since the need for him arose and was fulfilled in the same instant. Such would your reason tell you if you listened. Yet such is clearly not the ego's reasoning. Your reason's alien nature to the ego is proof you will not find the answer there. Yet if it must be so, it must exist. And if it exists for you and has your freedom as the purpose given it, you must be free to find it.
Mhm. I still remember years ago having a reaction to this first sentence where it says, God's plan for your salvation could not have been established without my will and my consent. And thinking in terms of life beginning at birth, human birth, if one viewed it through that context, you'd say, well, when did I consent to this plan? I don't have any memory of consenting to God's plan for salvation. And so that would be the error of framing this entirely based on the duration of a human life, of your human life. What the Course is alluding to here is something that was prior to your birth in human form and even prior to time, because it says the will of God does not wait upon time to be accomplished. What joined the will of God is in you now and is eternal. It is before you were born, before time began. It was with you when you were born. It's with you now, and it'll be with you throughout eternity. So we're talking clearly about your higher self, not your daily conscious mind or ordinary conscious mind. And so, in referencing this original state where you gave your consent and where you accepted God's plan for salvation, you must have set aside a place in which the Holy Spirit can abide. And a place, we mean really a part of your higher mind. You set aside a domain, not a physical place with geographic longitude and latitude, but a domain of awareness where the Holy Spirit can abide and where the Holy Spirit now is. And that is where your reason, spiritual reason, abides, is in that place. The ego, of course, cannot understand any of this. And if any of you who are listening to this are perhaps struggling with believing in this spiritual reason, just know that the only thing you need to do is not oppose the idea, just allow it into your mind. For the Holy Spirit can operate on levels that are not what we would call intellectual levels of agreement, disagreement, but just allow the concept into your mind and say, okay, I don't understand that fully yet, but I trust the Holy Spirit will work with me on that. It must exist. And if it exists for you and it has your freedom as its purpose, which it most certainly does, you must be free to find this spiritual reason within yourself. So that alludes to what we'll call our what's ahead of us in terms of being able to apply spiritual reason to your life situations, where you are free to use spiritual reason, which is really where we want to get to. Otherwise, we're talking theory. If you can't apply this to your life, so we'll get to that application aspect. You had your hand up, Kathy.
Is this where the course talks about remembering who we are as one of the goals of the course? Is that kind of what this is talking about?
Well, that is really the central question of the course is what are we? Because if we answer that mistakenly, we go off into a downward spiral. So it's the foundation. And then other questions and answers can be derived, Kathy, once we get clear on that one. I am as God created me. I was there at the beginning of creation. I consented to his plan for salvation. I've accepted that. My will is that God's plan for salvation would prevail in all of life, including my own.
So this is essential, really,
Fundamental.
fundamental, yeah.
If you use a metaphor, metaphorically, if you thought of the ego thought system as a circle of ideas with thousands of statements inside of it, and then there's another circle, the Holy Spirit's thought system, with infinite number of ideas there. At the very center of those two thought systems is the question, what am I? The ego would have an entirely different answer than the Holy Spirit. And so the center must be properly anchored before we can radiate outward into all the other infinity of what's available through the mind of the Creator.
Okay.
Speaking of circles,
God's plan is simple, never circular, and never self-defeating. He has no thoughts except the self-extending, and in this your will must be included. Thus, there must be a part of you that knows his will and shares it. It is not meaningful to ask if what must be is so, but it is meaningful to ask why you are unaware of what is so. For this must have an answer if the plan of God for your salvation is complete. And it must be complete because its source knows not of incompletion. Where would the answer be but in the source? And where are you but there, where this same answer is? Your identity, as much a true effect of this same source as is the answer, must therefore be together and the same. Oh, yes, you know this, and more than this alone.
so let's go deep. I think this is sufficiently deep here. There must be, we said a moment ago, there's only one mind in all creation. If you start with that as your premise, there must be a part of you, the mind within you, that knows his will, not perceives his will, but with perfect clarity knows his will and shares in it. We just said a moment ago you consented to accept and join in the will of God. So we'll consider that your eternal self. Now, we're not saying that this eternal self is fully communicated to your conscious mind, but we're saying that that is a part of you that was there at the beginning of creation. It's here now, and it will continue to exist forever. So it's a part that is not in time. Go deep. It's a part of you that's beyond time and space. It's not contained by, it does not abide by the laws of time and space. It did not originate in time and space and is not limited by the laws of time and space, for it by definition was there before time began. It was there in eternity, and therefore it's part of the eternal now, the eternal present, and the eternal future. It's a part of you, and that part of you is not interpreting reality. That part knows reality. And so when we talk about the memory of God, this is that in reference to that, the part that knows his will and fully shares in its will, where there's no equivoc, where there's no hesitation towards God's will. It's a total buy-in. And so what does the Course say about that? That not to ask that about whether or not this is so, but rather to ask, why are we unaware of what is going on in that higher conscious state? Why do I not remember that? Why is my mind occupied with meaningless thoughts that show me a meaningless world, with occupied with idols and illusions of myself? It's meaningful to ask why you're unaware of what this, for this must have an answer if God's plan for salvation is complete. And now here's where we jump outside of time again. God's plan for salvation must be complete because God's mind doesn't know of incompletion. So what are we saying? It's sometimes referred to as the Alpha and the Omega, the beginning, the middle, and the end. God knew the end from the beginning. In the Old Testament, it might be in Proverbs, nothing new is happening, ever happened under the sun. There's it's impossible to surprise God with an event in creation that his infinite mind did not anticipate from the beginning. So if he knows not of partial plans or disrupted plans, he knows only of the perfect and complete picture. And so this would be not the way we see things in time and space, for we see it as having a lot of work to do, a lot of healing to do. There's a lot of forgiveness, a lot of learning. Clearly, a lot has to be done before we would reach in time a state of completion. What the reference is here, that in this higher mind, that state is already fully manifest, not in time, but in eternity. So that's a leap. That's a big leap for many. Where would this answer to your question of why are you unaware? The answer must be in the mind of the source. And I find bolded this whole thing, and I'm reluctant to bold just for purposes of bolding things, but where are you? Let's rephrase it. Where is this one mind of yours that is united with creation, that is a part of the eternal plan, that consented to God's plan and gave your will? Where are you? But they're making reference to the source, where this same answer is. Where are you? But there, you're there. Your higher mind is already united with the source. And we call this your true identity, sometimes referred to as your eternal self or your supreme self. Your identity is as true as much a true effect of this same source. The sons of God are the effect of the Father as source, as is the answer an effect of the source, and must therefore be together and the same. We're saying there was never a separation between the Father creator and his plan for creation and all the members of his creation. Think about the inverse. What force in creation could separate the creator from his creation? A, a lie? An ego thought? An ego mistake? You must be in your higher eternal self together with the creator. And then, as if that wasn't enough, oh, yes, you know this. Your higher mind knows this, and much more than this alone. So, this is truly profound. We will come back to these transcendental concepts again and again. These are ideas where we contrast time-space beliefs with these transcendent beliefs. We'll come back to them again and again, for honestly, they usually take multiple hearings before all of a sudden what seemed to be difficult seems so easy. Heather, you had your hand up.
I just think it's so unusual the way they say that. Oh, yes, you know this. And more than this alone, I think it's so arresting the way they put that in there. Like it's an exclamation, like don't even question that. It's like a double emphasis. I just am fascinated by that they put this in there. I think they so want us to get that. That it's a natural, it's natural. It's not something we have to reach for. It's just a given.
I agree with everything you said, Heather. It's not the way our little self, lacking confidence, they don't know what they're talking about, or I'm not really sure, blah blah. But this is the way your true and higher identity is confident in reality. It it's certain. What we talk about, it's certainty, it's knowledge of his will,
Mm-hmm.
not the perception of these things, but the knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
So okay, so I did divide up the paragraphs here a little bit, and the next paragraph is a continuation of that.
Yet any part of knowledge threatens dissociation as much as all of it, and all of it will come with any part.
Mm.
Here is the part you can accept. What reason points to, you can see, because the witnesses on its behalf are clear. Only the totally insane can disregard them, and you have gone past this. Reason is a means that serves the Holy Spirit's purpose in its own right. It is not reinterpreted and redirected from the goal of sin, as are the others. For reason is beyond the ego's range of means.
Mm-hmm. So this is the shortcut. In other words, what we were just talking about seems very lofty and difficult to grasp. And my goodness, how many years would I have to study before I could understand what that means? That would be a reasonable reaction. That was my reaction at one point. But here's the shortcut. Dissociation, which is the ego's teaching that we are apart and separate, is threatened by just a little bit of knowledge. Any part of knowledge will threaten the ego's belief system in separation. And with any part of knowledge, all of it will come at once. Think of it as they refer to this elsewhere as a contrast between quantitative progress versus a qualitative leap. Like in your workbook lessons, you do all 365 lessons and then you do them again. So that's 700 lessons, and maybe you do it more than that. Those are quantitative steps, adding one to another day after day after day, decision after just many of those things you remember every hour. So those are like thousands of decisions, quantitative progress. It's helpful. You need that. And then there's, towards the end of that journey, there's what we call a qualitative leap. It's not just another little step. It's a giant leap where all of knowledge comes with any part of it. So you don't have to, that last step where it comes, you don't have to work for. So let's focus on the little part that you can accept, because we just said all of it will come with any part. The little part you can accept is what spiritual reason points to, how spiritual reason in your own life is evident and works and makes clear for you in your own experience. It makes perfect sense. Why? Because you witness it in your own life. Kathy, this is in many ways like what we talked about in the beginning, where we're witnessing people coming from many different backgrounds are restating principles that we thought were found in the Course of Miracles, and they found them elsewhere. We witness to these things, and we would not disregard them. Why? So let me see if I can untangle. Reason is a means that serves the Holy Spirit's purpose in its own right. Spiritual reason is the means that the Holy Spirit uses to serve her own purpose in your life. She wants you to have this ability, if I can call it that. I'm not sure that's fair. This gift. She wants you to have this gift available to you because it will serve the Holy Spirit's purpose. It emerges from the higher mind, so it must be congruent with the Holy Spirit's purpose. And it does not come to contrast the Holy Spirit's reason. It is not based upon egoic time, space, logic and reason of material world, interpretations that are then somehow made better or reinterpreted. It doesn't emerge out of those lower confused ideas. It emerges from the higher mind into your mind. It's a means that the Holy Spirit uses to serve her purpose. It's a gift. So, what could be more important than to, first of all, believe that there's a gift that you have, that this gift is entirely in line with the Holy Spirit's purpose and is for your happiness and for the welfare of everyone, and that this gift is something that ties all the way back to the Creator's plan from the beginning, long before time even began. This gift was conceived of as being the very means by which you would be able to witness this movement of spirit, to be able to see things more clearly than ever before.
Faith and perception and belief can be misplaced and serve the great deceiver's need as well as truth. But reason has no place at all in madness, nor can it be adjusted to fit its end. Faith and belief are strong in madness, guiding perception toward what the mind has valued. But reason enters not at all in this, for the perception would fall away at once if reason were applied. There is no reason in insanity, for it depends entirely on reason's absence. The ego never uses it because it does not realize that it exists. The partially insane have access to it, and only they have need of it. Knowledge does not depend on it, and madness keeps it out.
So there's a reference here to a section in the earlier that appeared earlier in chapter 21 that taught us that we can misuse the power of faith. We can certainly misuse perception. By misuse, I mean be guided by ego impulses to believe that they are true. That's what I mean by misuse. So faith and perception and belief can be misplaced. Remember that circle with the ego thoughts? You can place your faith, your belief, and your perception there. That would be misplaced. And then what happens? It serves the ego's needs. But as we begin to recognize or recognize the power of our faith, the power of our belief, then we can choose again as to where to place our faith and our belief and our perception. And so we're in contrast to faith, belief, and perception, which can be misused. Spiritual reason cannot be misused. It comes from the mind of the Holy Spirit. It serves, we just read, it serves the purpose of the Holy Spirit. And if reason were applied to your situation, then the perception would fall away because you would have an insight, a glimpse into a more profound truth that would make all interpretations, which perceptions are, seem inadequate. Why would you want to interpret something based on your uncertain formulation when you had direct knowledge of the Holy Spirit's intentions. Heather?
Yeah, I think I just made a connection that's very helpful to me, that this faith and perception and belief can be misplaced. I think for myself, that's when I engage in indiscriminate miracles. I might see a situation and jump in and think I can help, and then, I haven't really thought it through, and then it can be just misplaced. And anyway, I just realized that it may be an example of how faith and perception can be misplaced.
Mm-hmm. And just for those of you that might not fully appreciate Heather's reference, the Course talks about two types of miracles. This is not widely recognized. One is called an indiscriminate miracle. And then the other one is called a Christ-directed miracle. An indiscriminate miracle is, as Heather indicates, something where, I'll speak first person, where I get all caught up and say, oh, I can help here. I can do this, and jump in to some situation based on my own initiative and attempt to bring about good. But do so based on my own self-advised guidance. It's not evil or sinful. It can be a miracle. And the Course says, while that can do good, it only lasts, it's only temporary. It doesn't heal the mind of its errors. In contrast, a Christ-directed, Christ-controlled miracle is initiated by the mind of Christ and has lasting effects. David, you had your hand up.
I was just thinking how our daily lessons really ask us to activate this spiritual quality of by making us come to that reasonable answer that because so much of the instruction is asking us questions to engage that. And that's the same thing that Jesus did when he was here. He just asked questions looking for that essence of truth in the person. So I like the whole concept. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Very good, David. It does. The workbook lessons definitely will lead you to this state of employing spiritual reason.
The part of mind where reason lies was dedicated by your will in union with your fathers to the undoing of insanity. Here was the Holy Spirit's purpose accepted and accomplished, both at once. Reason is alien to insanity, and those who use it have gained a means which cannot be applied to sin. Knowledge is far beyond attainment of any kind, but reason can serve to open doors you closed against it. You have come very close to this. Faith and belief have shifted, and you have asked the question the ego will never ask. Does not your reason tell you now the question must have come from something that you do not know, but must belong to you? Faith and belief, upheld by reason, cannot fail to lead to changed perception. And in this change is room made way for vision. Vision extends beyond itself, as does the purpose that it serves, and all the means for its accomplishment.
Mm-hmm. So they're making reference, you've come very close to opening the doors that were closed to knowledge. Well, reason, spiritual reason, plays a role in helping to open those doors again. And it says you've come close to this, again, by repurposing your faith, using the power of your mind, you repurpose your faith and belief, you shift them, and that you have asked the question the ego will never ask: what am I? What is my true nature? Which is really to say, what was I created for? Which is really also to say, what am I doing? What's the meaning of my life? You have asked the question, and reason will now tell you that the answer comes from this higher place that is a part of you. And this final few sentences here, I think, give you, in a very concise formula, very concisely, the formula for what we've been talking about. That faith and belief, which we've always had, but now being nourished and encapsulated by spiritual reason, all are guaranteed to lead to changed perception. And this changed perception will make way for spiritual vision. So it's a sequence here: repurposing of faith and belief, now being encompassed by spiritual reason, the same spiritual reason that helped you to understand you are as God created you. That makes the way for spiritual vision, and vision will take you all the way to the front door of heaven. Kathy?
Yeah, this is telling me that this is why the atonement is guaranteed for all of us.
Yes.
Because our holy self is safe.
Yes.
It has spiritual reason. Holy Spirit extends it to us, guides us, and God goes with us wherever we go. So we have Christ's vision within us. We just have to connect to it, and we have to extend love, extend forgiveness, extend, and that spiritual vision, that Christ vision. This is very beautiful. To me, it's like the whole proof of why the atonement is guaranteed.
I like it, the way you phrased it there, Kathy. Yes, it's already complete in the mind of God. We just need to, so to speak, we read yesterday about heaven on earth. We need to open the doors to allow the gift to enter into our earthly awareness in time and space, for the plan is already fully laid out and assured for us. So that is really, wow, what a feast of spiritual assurance here. Just to let you all know that we're going to take a pause on March 21st and 22nd. We'll resume on March 23rd. I'll make those announcements again. So that's as far as we're going to read today, but there's more to the chapter, and we hope that you'll come back for our next session, which always inevitably echoes and builds upon the section that we just read. And so I think that we are privileged to understand and read these things and come together and affirm that these resonate as truth in our own minds. We're very fortunate to be in this time, in this place. Thank you all. Atisha, thank you for your reading.
Thank you, Atisha. Thank you.
Thank you, Atisha.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Atisha.
Thanks, Atisha.
Thank
Bye,
you, Jonica.
everyone.
Thank you, Atisha. Thanks, Jonica.
Everyone.
Good night.
Hi, guys.
Bye.
Everybody.
Bye.